The most celebrated pieces of architecture in history and most recognizable, the pyramids, Taj Mahal, or actually tombs. They are legacy writ large, manifest into stone.
Is your father still around?
He survived.
I would love to hear what your father thinks because he was on his deathbed more than once.
In Mexico, they have the Day of the Dead. This is like the most important day culturally for Mexican culture. Confucian cultures in Asia, you have to create a shrine to your ancestors every year. I think Western cultures sort of have evolved to a place where death is anathema. You don't want to talk about it. It's forbidden.
Welcome to the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. If you ever asked, how do I protect myself and those I love if something unexpected happened to me? You're in the right place. I'm your host, Niki Weiss, and together we'll explore how to protect yourself in a world where both your physical and digital legacy leave a lasting impact. And welcome back to another episode of the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. My very special guest today is Alexander Josephson. And Alex, you have a unique background because when I use the word architect, it can mean for buildings and for digital design, and you bridge the two together. So welcome to the show, and please tell us how you got here today.
Oh, Nikki, thanks. I've enjoyed all of our conversations, and I'm excited about today. How did I get to where we are, death and dying in the digital age? Everybody asks me that, and it's like the idea of someone running two companies or having entrepreneurial interests. It's fascinating. I just wanted to solve a problem, which was my family needed its legacy preserved. People have sacrificed and done so many things to put me in a position where I can live a prosperous life here in glorious Canada. And my entire family basically was just putting it on my back to save everything that we had, or design a tomb for my family or a grave for my dad. I mean, the way I got here was the way most people get here. It's someone's either potentially going to die, or they've died and you've got to pick up the pieces, or you've got to coach the family through it. And in my case, it was me.
You were the person. There's always a person in the family.
There's always the person, right? And it's not the person that has the least on their plate. It's usually the person that has the most going on and is the most productive in the family, because it's like, oh, if I send everything to him, or if I ask him or her to do everything, they'll get it all done. And not that my family isn't full of overachievers and wonderful, productive people. It's just that for some reason, I felt like it was aimed or directed at me. But more to your point, how does an architect find themselves running a digital memorial or digital cemetery platform?
And I just want to define an architect, like buildings, like
yes, buildings.
Green buildings.
I have three and a half
design.
degrees in architecture. I dropped out. This is what makes me a good tech founder, I guess. I dropped out of my third degree in architecture, technically my fourth degree in architecture. I studied at the University of Waterloo in Canada, which is ironically the best architecture school, but also the place where JavaScript and some of the most incredible advancements in technology in the 20th century took place. The BlackBerry, for instance, portable handheld devices, that was basically invented at Waterloo. So the proximity between my education and what you'd call brick and mortar architecture and technology and the praxis, the intersection of all this makes a lot of sense. But also the history of architecture itself, the pyramids, the Taj Mahal, the most celebrated pieces of architecture in history and most recognizable are actually tombs. They're homages. They are legacy writ large, manifest into stone. Whether it's a love story in the case of Taj Mahal for the princess who passed away, or Ramses the Great with the pyramids. But I think as an architect, I come by this honestly. It's central to the practice of the profession. We've been designing monuments, memorials, tombs for thousands of years. The first known named architect was Imhotep in Egypt for the pyramids. Lutyens designed the cenotaph, the first grave of the unknown soldiers. There's such a rich history for architects trying to solve for memorialization and death. But the world doesn't know, because architecture is really perceived as a very elite, rarefied profession, and a lot of people don't know architects, so it would seem weird that I would be interested in this. But between all the history of architecture and what my dad was asking me, which was to design his grave, and my uncle asking me to save things that were unsavable, they were digital. Like, I was like, how do I solve this using my design powers? That was how I got here.
Well, and not just that, it didn't scare you away. I mean, there's some people that you say, the word death or planning for death or thinking about death, and, why would I want to do that? Or how do you go from, creating this beautiful building that people are either going to be, working in or living in, to no, you're going to create a place, a sacred space where people are their afterlife, and now their digital afterlife.
Yes.
You're just wired for it. I'm sorry. Just not everybody is.
Not everybody. Listen. It's a taboo subject. It's even taboo in technology. No one wants to talk about this. It's death and taxes. Everybody wants to avoid them, and it's fascinating to me. I was like, this is a huge opportunity from an entrepreneurial perspective. I was like, wow, we could apply the most advanced digital poetic architectural design ideas in this context to serve a good purpose. And maybe we could also create some prosperity for us as designers, because designers and architects are like, we're not bankers. You have to love this. You have to have a passion for it to do it. But I think that the hack here is, I came from a family of doctors and artists, so mortality and legacy were sort of table talk, for lack of a better word. And and in North America, especially Western culture, death is really outside of the normative center of discussion. In fact, it's about death avoidance and avoiding that reality. Whereas other cultures, for example, Mexico, they have the Day of the Dead. This is like the most important day culturally for Mexican culture, and that is extraordinary. And that's an offshoot of Spanish culture, right? But in praxis, with their history, Teotihuacan, the original cultures of Mexico, and mixing with that Spanish culture gets you this amazing. I don't know the history perfectly, but there's an example in North America of 150 million people that celebrate mortality every year together, and it's central to their culture on a daily basis. Confucian cultures in Asia, you have to create a shrine to your ancestors every year and honor your ancestors. Western culture used to make oaths about leaving the world a better place than when you inherited it. It was ancient Greece. That's gone the way of the dodo and replaced with, I would say, more individualistic pursuits, generally, with some philanthropic give back. But I think Western cultures sort of have evolved to a place where death is anathema. You don't want to talk about it. It's forbidden.
And then here you are, taking both your engineering as an architect and then your sounds deep philosophical thirst for learning, and you've created a platform called Cumulus. Cumulus, for those that don't know, it's a cloud. Help me out here. The Cumulus clouds, right? So, or I should ask you, how did you come up with the name Cumulus?
Well, we all want to go to heaven. We all want to go to heaven.
And why did you, out of all the stratospheric options?
Cumulus is the name of the most beautiful cloud. All right, these enormous billowing clouds, and I think of just the beauty and the uniqueness of clouds, but also that we live in an era and an age in which we are in the cloud. Our identities are completely tied to the cloud. Our experience is in the cloud. All of our memories are in the cloud. They're no longer printed photographs, newspaper art. Well, I mean, newspapers are still printed, but not much, not comparatively. And so things have become very, very dissociated. Even though we're connected by all this technology, everything that's sacred and emotionally resonant to us it's securely on these devices, and everything is saved in the cloud. And so the cloud became my obsession. And how could I create an immersive experience, like a room, a space, a sanctuary, a temple of your memories, where your family would visit that and immerse themselves in that experience and really make something different and beautiful compared to the sort of flat scrolling social media that is essentially productizing you because it's an advertising feed. It's just it's just replaced television, and people are addicted to it. Even I am sometimes, and I really wanted to create something different than that. And Cumulus was my way of saying, a physical grave is very limiting. It might be a beautiful thing in a cemetery, but it doesn't say anything about my dad's fight with cancer for 10 years, his eventual intubation during COVID for a year in the hospital, surviving that, making it through, his love of lemon custard pie, my mother's background going to Parsons and dropping out to take care of her mother when she died at 50 of cancer. None of these stories that define just like the struggle, but also the incredible achievements of my grandmother started a business in 1935. I can go on and on and on. My great-great-grandparents left Vienna in 1920, the seat of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was like New York in 1820. Like New York was nothing compared to Vienna in 1820. And my family left Vienna to Toronto. It was like dirt roads. It wasn't a country. It was a colony still. So like those stories are so inspiring to me. And I know everybody, you don't have to be Elon Musk to have a legacy worth saving.
Oh, just sometimes the ordinary stories are the ones that are extraordinary.
Yes, the ordinary stories. And it's like, I feel that those stories, those assets, they're dying off.
Why? Well, I mean, because we just haven't been able to figure out how to.
Because it doesn't suit
encapsulate?
it doesn't suit the corporate interests that exist for us to feel happy, connected, and inspired. What they want is for us to feel envious, jealous, and to consume and consume. And they don't want this sort of, they don't want to create platforms that are positivist. They want to create platforms that are capitalist in their pure, rawest form. And so you have to differentiate between the space of memorialization and legacy building and the space of social media. Those platforms exist to essentially just perpetually make money off of you and your legacy. Whereas Cumulus is set up a little bit differently. We want to build a financial trust, just like a cemetery. We want people to pay a one-time fee or a monthly fee and earn into perpetuity. We want to build the equivalent of a digital cemetery. And we've built that, and it's now mobile and desktop. And why Cumulus? Because there's so much to save. Notes, recordings, videos, still images that you'd like to animate. It goes on and on and on. But once you have an accident or once you're gone, if they're in your phone or if they're in your computer and they're behind a password, it's gone forever. It's not that there's an album.
From control. Somebody owns it.
Yes, and so
and it's not your family.
Short story long, Cumulus was designed and envisioned as the place you go, the place where you save all that information, that you experience it. Whether you hire someone to do a documentary on you and it's a video, or if you write a book, where do you put this stuff? A Google Drive? On iCloud? How do you pass it on? If you ask the question, how do I pass this on and feel like where I'm putting it is going to be around in 100 years? This is what I wanted Cumulus to be. The space, place, sanctuary, temple, built of digital granite.
Is your father still around?
He survived.
So he's here today.
He's here today, and we've never had a better relationship, which is what close brushes with death.
And I feel like there's a couple of things I want to talk to you. One is like, I would love to hear what your father thinks, because he was on his deathbed more than once.
Several times.
So there's that experience, just to talk about that, because the doctors had been telling you, they were telling you he wasn't going to survive. And you said goodbye several times?
Several times.
What was that like?
It was like dying and dying and dying and dying. It was like... and I can't imagine the number of people who experience this as we talk to each other right now. Mm-hmm. It's like, because when you're in the hospital and you're that ill, if you're fighting, like you can be, you can go out. It's like a sinus curve. You can be amazing, then you can be terrible, and you can be amazing. And so everybody deals with grief differently, and the most important thing is to recognize it, and in that case, the impending potential grief, because you already had that cancer diagnosis that have the sort of axe hanging over our heads for a decade. You start to realize that if you haven't made your arrangements, and my father had made his arrangements. He bought plots in a cemetery, and it's extremely expensive to get a beautiful plot in a cemetery. Wow, you have to be really wealthy, or not just really wealthy. You either have to have the desire and the appreciation for being in a beautiful cemetery, and that
And willing to pay top premium. I mean, it's a piece of
yeah,
real estate you're buying.
you're buying a piece of real estate, and you're buying a perpetuity trust, because these places have endowments to make sure they're kept forever. And God, he really did well by himself, and my mother too. They were very successful, and he wanted to build a tomb, and it was going to be millions of dollars. Literally,
Really?
the plot of land in a downtown Toronto cemetery was minimum $1 million to $2 million just for the plot.
No idea. I had
Yeah,
no
to build
idea
to
that
build a
that's
tomb, to build a tomb. A tomb is like a building, a
concrete,
small
right?
a small building, and
But it
and
doesn't
it
have
just
any, wait, it doesn't have any, like, no plumbing, no electricity. There's like
no, but you have to build it in solid stone,
concrete.
and it's solid
Stone or
stone,
concrete? Like,
both solid stone and concrete. You have to build it out of a forever material. That is what cemeteries are about, and we couldn't afford that. It was a great vision. I love that he wanted to commission me. And it was just a question of priority. Like, do I want the money I've saved to go into a tomb, or to go to my great great grandchildren, or into a trust that lives forever and creates prosperity for my family and their offspring? And it's like, he's so generous. He's so frugal, but he wanted to do this thing, and it was beautiful. And then it became clear it was going to be two plots, mom, dad, beautiful gravestone. Still happy to design that, will design that. But what does it say about them? They were successful enough to be able to be in a nice cemetery. They have stuff they can pass on to my children, pass on to my young daughters, pass on to my daughters. Like, these stories, these things, I believe actually Cumulus can make the world a better place, really a better place, because it's the lack of memory that's causing us to not feel connected. It's the lack of knowledge, the lack of this shared history and feeling a part of something, that I believe is the root of a lot of violence, a lot of the ills of society. And no, do I think that legacy preservation is a solution? It's one thing. If you can keep people together, if you can create continuity for a family, it's something to be inspired by. And so that was why I wanted to do this. And I just realized that a digital solution was better than a physical solution.
and what did your father think about that? Again, he's how old right now?
He's he's gonna turn 80 next fall.
And the reason I ask is because I actually find it more challenging to talk to the 70 and 80-year-olds plus about this. If they don't have a plan already, they just can't imagine. And I also find that they don't care about their digital afterlife. Like, it just, they don't have a conceptual value of what their conversations, their text messages, their digital photos. So how did your father at 80 years old see the value of $1 million, mausoleum or
Well,
building,
I
physical
think
building to,
I
all
think
right,
that the tomb thing comes from his obsession with history
okay.
and Egyptology and archaeology, but also being a doctor, kind of an interesting combination, right? But I think that he's a unique kind of character that way. But on the other hand, my uncle is this sort of like charming, raconteur, sort of full of himself in a charming way, in a cute way. And he would send all these achievements in optometry that he had done to our family. And here's an article about me in Ohio State University Buckeyes magazine, like, and I was like, how can I save this? What archive? Like it's just a website. And I realized that as soon as that website link is gone, that article is gone. His achievement's gone. His grandchildren will never know. And I was like, I need to solve for this. I was just like, I want to solve for this. I want to solve it for my dad, my uncle, me. Yes, I think primarily it falls on us, the people between the age of 30 and 50 who are caring for our parents now that they are our elderly parents. And it really does fall on us to create these memorials. But gosh, doing them in a pinch last minute, that's a lot of work.
It's a lot.
I'm sure you've heard statistically it falls on a woman if there's a woman in the family, the next of kin. And I don't want to get into gender normative
No, but I mean, statistically, it
discussions,
shows that it
but
falls on the eldest daughter,
oh
right?
yeah, and it's like or the anyway. But my point is really that physical memorialization has never been less attainable, especially not in places that are convenient. People are getting cremated. What do you do? How do you create a space and place where the most important things to pay tribute to someone are saved? And how do you I wanted to create something useful that you could share with multiple family members to crowdsource the legacy. Because if one person's doing it, it's so hard. Whereas Cumulus, you can just add, there's a family on Cumulus with 120 collaborators. I'm exaggerating, 90 something. It's a lot, okay? And they all contribute. And they created this enormous cloud and they played it during the memorial for this guy who had 32 grandchildren, okay? Incredible, 32 grandchildren. Died at the age of 97. And he wanted his ashes scattered in Scotland at the old course, the golf course, St. Andrews, and in Toronto at his grave. And we were able to pin the location that they scattered his ashes in Scotland and then in Toronto. And then there's hundreds of images, and we just played this cloud during the memorial, and it was crowdsourced. They didn't have to have one person staying up all night or emailing everybody to get content. It was like, hey, we've got a Cumulus account. Everybody submit something really important to you or a few things for granddad. And it was done overnight. It was like, by the morning, you had hundreds of images and videos and sketches and everything.
So then the question we're back to where you and I intersect, which is this planning, is having
Yeah.
the conversations ahead of time, where for Cumulus, you don't have to wait till the person's gone. It should be part of your estate planning. It should be
Yeah.
part of way ahead of time. Like your dad is like a cat. I don't know, 9 lives. I don't know how many times he's been able to come back, but not
Yeah.
everybody's going to have the opportunity that your father's had. So to be able to start saying, "Hey, this is what I want. This is how I want to be memorialized." Perpetuity versus, all right, for the next 90 days or 9 years, or for the family to decide to have control of access to these memories. How does that
Yeah.
work on your platform?
So what I'm finding listen, I think you've said two things that are very revealing. One, it falls on the people who are digitally savvy. There's a few people in that age bracket, the boomer bracket that's getting really older, that are tech savvy and understand this product. Whereas people our age, 25 to 55, they get this in a second, right? Then the question comes, well, when do you do this? Well, in North America, we have this avoidant culture. So that being said, 65% of the people over the age of 65, that's this internal number in death services, have their arrangements in place. So people do actively, in the majority, create their arrangements before they're 65. But the question is it complete? It seems to me that it's incomplete.
I would agree.
That legacy planning is sort of like it's sort of a roadmap. Some things are paid for in advance through insurance policies and stuff like this, but really there's a lack of constant attention to it, so that when it happens, it's going to happen. When it happens, it's less of a burden on everybody. And what's universal, interestingly, about elderly people who are, naturally aging into, old age and not wanting to be a burden, is this is the easiest way to not be a burden. You put your arrangements partner's contact in your cloud. You get all your relatives invited to the cloud, to Cumulus account. They add content. You add content. They comment. You mark your grave in or place you want to be scattered in advance. You mark the places on the map in the software that you find are important, and you do it like a family project. Right. That's what I'm doing, and I think that's what people love who are using the platform. But the question is, how do we get more people to do this, and how do they like it? And what's great about being an architect is I'm a glutton for punishment. I just want to hear how to make it better. Tell me like Niki, you've been using it. Does it, is it intuitive? Does it work? How can I make it better? Tell me. Give me the hard feedback, because it can only make it a better product.
And I want to, so for those that don't know, I have the opportunity to jump on there. And there's several people that I've spoken to that have similar use cases where it's like, to be able to upload pictures in order to memorialize. But what makes Cumulus different is that there is a VR component to it. So, and you do feel like you're in the clouds. Like I feel like I'm up there and I'm able to like navigate. It's a two-dimensional, well, not two-dimensional, it's an experiential.
It's three-dimensional. It's
a three-dimensional experiential user experience.
It's giving everybody a tomb of their memories that they can visit. That's what it is. It's like we can all be kings. We are all kings and queens, and we can have a tomb. And that's the idea.
To be able to walk through it, it's walking through. It's like there are these tiles, and to be able to click into the tile and then go deeper into the tile, it was just fascinating, the experience. And I wish I had the VR goggles. Talk a little bit about in your design, like what made you think about giving that texture versus just a file experience, like a regular folder file experience.
Yeah, so it's the exact opposite. It's not just a organizational tool. It's not just some bland file format Dropbox. That's not a tool for memorialization. That's a storage facility that you pay for forever. And by the way, what our model is we want to build a financial trust. So the more people who do opt into either the perpetuity upfront payment of $299 or the $599 a month account, if they want, they earn into the trust over time. So what I want to do is I want to create a platform that is purpose-built for memorialization, not purpose-built for just storing stuff. It's not. There's a difference between a self-storage facility and a cemetery. They're not the same thing. And there are different financial models. And so what I wanted to do was build a forever company. Build a company based around collective memorialization, bringing families together. That, by the way, families are so dispersed. Americans especially, they move all over the world. They disconnect from each other. This is a way to reconnect. And the hope for me is that you invite all your family, Niki. You saw how you can just invite, you just put dozens and dozens of emails in. And they'll do their own cloud because they want to do a cloud for themselves. And eventually we'll have this ability to connect clouds. And you'll be able to, as time goes on, you'll be able to go between the clouds that have been built around your family.
How did this idea come? I mean, I feel like some of the near-death experiences, people talk about what they experienced on the other side and then came back. Based on what you're sharing, it feels like there's a little bit of that life review that people are going through, in the Cumulus.
I was just inspired by the people who came before me and have given me so much, and I wanted to pay tribute to them. But I was also inspired by people in my life who were like, Alex, how are you innovating digitally? The world's moving to be completely digital, bricks versus bytes. You're an architect. How are you bringing your incredible design skills? We're doing projects all over the world. How do you democratize that? How do you give that to the world? And I was asking myself this, and my wife also, when we started doing this, was like, couldn't you create this for everybody? Couldn't this be something that everybody could use? Because I was just building this for my family. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she said, why don't you create an investor deck and show me, convince me as an investor? And then she helped me find investors, and we had some very, very big American investors in companies. Park Lawn, which is a big company across the United States, which is now owned by Birch Hill and Homesteaders Life. And I hope, they're a happy partner and investor. And also AliCorp out of New York, a tech investor, a tech venture fund invested. So, this is a labor of love, but it's also just like, it's an enormous problem. I've been to wakes and funerals recently where there's like thousands of photos sitting in boxes that have never been digitized. And they're like, what do we do?
They're lost. They're not just lost. It's like, then what do you do after the funeral?
Well,
people take a handful, but you still have...
They disperse. It's like, I'll take these. And boom, boom. And eventually these things decay. So my grandmother put together an album in the 70s or 80s. I don't know how she had the time. She was this wonderful, like really feisty businesswoman. But she somehow, I guess maybe she was also pressured. And she put this album together, and it just happened to be in my parents' house. And it's like, that album could have gone to one of 6 familial lines. There were cousins, there were my dad. Like, it didn't have to end up in my house, but it ended up in my house. The family's not a huge family, but like, it just, and I saw that and I was like, I have to preserve this. My grandmother spent time, she created prosperity for our family. I need to do her justice. These are the things that I was thinking. And I was like, and I just need to get these things digitized and then put everything onto Cumulus and pass it on.
And here we are. This is just an amazing story. I want to thank your father. I wish he was on this call with us, because I would just...
I should do this with him.
I would have like a whole nother conversation about, the doctors are saying you're on your way out, and he's, whatever reason, is here today. That is just an amazing story and a gift that you've given not just him, but now all of us have a chance to be able to step in and build our own Cumulus. So a couple takeaways our audience can start to think about based on your experience?
So share the responsibility. I know it's heavy, but if you share in it and you collaborate, it's so much more enjoyable. It's less heavy, and it feels like that good feeling when you get something done in advance and it's like, I did that. That's how it feels. Invite all your friends and family that are close to you, Niki, to your cloud, and see what happens. See what they put there.
This has been awesome. And if people want to get in touch with you, Alex, best way to find you?
So cumulus.world is the website, www.cumulus.world. There's Cumulus World on Instagram, and there's Cumulus on LinkedIn as well, if you're LinkedIn type. And then I'm Alexander Josephson at Instagram, and Alexander Josephson on LinkedIn as well. And there's Partisans as well, my architecture firm.
That'd be great. And with that, thank you so much for joining, and we'll end our call here. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Niki.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. I hope this conversation inspired you to take control and plan for the inevitable to protect yourself and those you leave behind. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at digitallegacypodcast.com. Remember, life is full of surprises. What happens after you die shouldn't be. So keep your passwords safe and your playbook up to date.